It's time to get to the fantasy top 10 centers. We've done goaltenders, we've done defensemen. Now it's time to rank our centers. And as you can see on the screen right there, we got our pool of candidates here. And, just like, I think this is the one position where it is super easy to just say, hey, we all know who number one is here on this list. It's Connor McDavid. No arguments here?
Absolutely not.
If you don't have Connor McDavid, we would like a 500-word essay, MLA format with your sources, because that would be different.
I always hated the sourcing part. I mean, we won't waste too much time on this. We got a mock draft to get to in terms of why McDavid should be number one, but he's one of those guys where he's number one until he's not number one, and it's obvious. So let's get him off the board right there. And then I think with number two, it's also kind of a consensus deal. Nate McKinnon, everybody's got him plugged in with the second best center there.
Yes.
Yeah.
If Connor McDavid doesn't exist, does Nathan McKinnon get that same exact treatment as first overall center?
I think he does.
I would say so. Even if he's a center, sometimes people don't go for centers early because you could get them later on. A lot of centers have dual position eligibility. They'll play the wing as well. So you'll start them there. But I mean, McKinnon's a train, right? He doesn't stop. He's going to see a ton of minutes again this year because Colorado has no depth. And he shoots the puck. He plays the top power play. He is electric. Not to mention, there's obviously maybe Coors Field has the advantage in baseball, but playing at altitude in Colorado definitely, the Colorado Avalanche are dominant on home ice, and it's not because their arena is nicer than anybody else's. So to me, there's just all those factors that make Nathan McKinnon if you're not getting Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon is a very good second prize.
I've been to Ball Arena. It's very nice.
I don't know if there's any leagues that, give you more points for shots on goal, but he had 200 more shots on goal than Connor McDavid. 405 to McDavid's 263.
At 405 is I'm old enough to remember when Ovechkin was shooting the puck 500 times a season on goal, and now we don't see anybody doing any of those numbers. So watching Nathan McKinnon be able to finish with 400 plus shots is very, very good because the volume is there. In fantasy hockey, as it is with daily fantasy, it's about volume, and Nathan McKinnon will give you volume everywhere. The only thing he won't do is hit, because why would he? Because the puck is always on his stick. So I can't imagine a world where you look at Nathan McKinnon and go, no.
Yeah, he's a locked-in number two. The top two guys are there. Now, you mentioned guys with multiple position availability. Leon Draisaitl does have right-wing eligibility in many leagues. Is this another consensus? We've got Draisaitl slotted in as the third center here, or do we have Matthews slotted in here? What are we doing?
I did a little bit of change here, and I know that a lot of people have Draisaitl at 3, but when you get 69 goals,
nice.
like Austin Matthews does, and he literally led the league with 69 goals. The next person was Sam Reinhart with 57. When you get 69 goals, that means something. So I had Austin Matthews at number 3. We also know Draisaitl gets, pushed to that second line there. And like you said, he also plays other positions. I had Austin Matthews at 3 with those goals. I know he doesn't have the assists to match that, but the goals are enough for me to put him at 3. But obviously, we mentioned this before on other shows. The fact that Leon Draisaitl has that contract weighing in on him with free agency looming, we might see another gear. He might, at the end of the season, he might be the top guy on the list.
I also have Austin Matthews at 3. I mean, again, if you're in if you're in a league where goals matter a little bit more, it's a no-brainer. Again, he scores goals. He rips the puck. He plays a ton. The Toronto Maple Leafs are a offense-first team, right? They don't play defense very well. And judging by their blue line, they're going to need to score a lot of goals every given night. So it just seems like another good spot for him to be.
Now, I had Draisaitl at the 3 spot. I'm certainly not going to make an argument against Matthews because he's very worthy of that consideration. I put the contract season in the factor there for putting him 3rd, but I got no problem putting Matthews as a top 3 center. For number 4, is it as simple as if it's not Matthews, it's Draisaitl? Are we talking Sidney Crosby here, or maybe a Jack Hughes, or are we all putting Draisaitl here?
No, Draisaitl.
Draisaitl.
If he's not 3, he's 4.
He's riding coattail with Connor McDavid, right? Even if they don't play on the same line, right? He's going to be on the best power play in the league, and he's an elite passer. He also is going. Let's say he plays on the second line, and he plays with Skinner and Arvidsson. That's an upgrade from the wingers that he's played with in the past, right? So that allows McDavid to play with Nugent Hopkins and play with Hyman, which was a very good line during the year. So it's not like Draisaitl's going to have to drag some plugs with him, right? We're not looking at Corey Perry and whatever other body they can put up there. For the first time, I think, in a while, he has legitimate wingers with him, and that's going to be a difference at 5-on-5. So I like that, and I think to Anthony's point, this is a contract year as well. We know how players perform in contract years. It would not surprise me if he finishes as the second best center in fantasy when it's all said and done in terms of points. It wouldn't shock me.
Now, we're about 5 minutes in, so let's get to our 5th spot. Now, I can't believe I'm suggesting a 37-year-old person for the 5th best center in the league, but here we are with Sidney Crosby, and he has not shown any signs of slowing down. All he does is just go out and be like a top 10 player every year for the past, almost 20 years. Anybody else that we want to put in that 5 spot, or is Crosby still a top 5 fantasy center?
Well, go ahead, man.
I have Jack Hughes there. Just, so you can lead into it, Anthony. That's who I have. He is electric. He's got a good team as well. That kind of helps as well. The Devils were supposed to be this like nonstop scoring team. And then, Jack kind of got hurt. Nico Hischier got hurt. Timo Meier was a dead corpse. So maybe Dougie Hamilton comes back. These are a lot I feel like they're going to be assembled for the first time in a really long time. And this is a team that can now rely on their goaltending, right? Jacob Markstrom is there and he is good. So maybe this gives them a little bit more freedom to play offensively. So there's a lot that I like there. And I think Jack Hughes can be a 100-point plus player this year. I think that's within his wheelbarrow. And if you're getting 100 points, can't slip below 5 for me. Like those 4 guys above, with the exception of Matthews, I don't know if he's hitting 100 points, but he scores goals at a record rate. But the other 3 there, McDavid, McKinnon, and Draisaitl, are 100-point players. So I see Jack Hughes in the 5 spot.
I would agree with this if I didn't watch him every day and worry about him getting injured. That's my only concern with Jack Hughes. He has not put together a full, season yet of being healthy. And that's outside of that, he belongs, like you said, in the top 5. The only guy that I if I'm wrong, let me know, but is JT Miller, isn't he considered a center as well?
He's center left wing, absolutely. Yeah, so he's in the mix as well.
That's who I had at number 5.
That's fair.
Is JT Miller, top line center with Vancouver, with Besser up there. That's who I have at center at number 5. So and then let me see who I had after that. If it was any of these 2 you guys mentioned. You mentioned Hughes, and no, I have Miller 5. I have actually Elias Pettersson at 6.
So yeah, I had Pettersson 7, Hughes 6, Crosby 5. So I think we can navigate these next few pretty good here, but it's going to get dicey once we're trying to figure out who else belongs in the top 10, because we're definitely going to be leaving a couple of names out that could be strong arguments could be made for. But to round out our top 5 here, is it Crosby? Is it Hughes? I would agree the injury. I mean, yes, he does have 178 game season under his belt, which is essentially a full season, but I can't believe I'm saying Crosby. You go back 15 years and you're going to say Crosby's a model of health compared to somebody else. You'd be like, you're crazy. But the last few years he has. So I think Crosby, Hughes as a 5-6, I think is fine. And then maybe a JT Miller 7 would be how I
agree. I agree with that because I had Crosby 7, Jack Hughes 8. And it's obviously because of health. And you're taking Sidney Crosby off of obviously history, and until he proves wrong that he's not that type of player. I mean, you just look at his stats for last season: 42 goals, 52 assists, had 23 power play points. Shots on goal, 278. That's another thing that's big, right? The shots on goal there, blocks and hits, 90, 37. I mean, I would go with Sidney Crosby, I guess, at 5. But Jack Hughes isn't far away. It's just the injuries that are keeping him from taking that next step to me.
He has a healthy season. He goes in the top 5 next year.
Absolutely.
It's as simple as that.
I am definitely not of the same opinion. I have Crosby lower down. He is a great player. Yes, Father Time is undefeated, and at some point it's going to catch up to him. And if I look at the Penguins roster as of today, like Evgeny Malkin is aging, right? He's no longer the player he once was. Injury prone there. Chris Letang, the same thing as well. Not the player he once was. He's expected to play with Rickard Rakell and Brian Rust. I mean, like, I get that Crosby gave Chris Kunitz a better career, but now we're starting to really like drag the anchor here. I'm not saying Rakell and Rust are not good players, but there's only so much that Sidney Crosby can do. And I think what's going to happen is teams are going to realize that the Penguins go as far as Crosby does, and they're going to start to treat him like they did at the beginning of his career. They're going to make life real difficult for him. And he's aging. It's just what it is. So for me, I would much rather take the upside on Jack Hughes just because he's younger, just because the team is better, than bet on Crosby, who can only decline. I will live with Sidney Crosby at 5, but I just want you to know this is not a consensus.
For me, it's tough to ignore 94 points last year, 93 points the year. But I understand the age
100%.
argument, 84 points before that. But like he hasn't had that. Like, okay, he had 93 2 years ago, but last year he had 70.
You're right.
There hasn't been that. Okay, now it's coming, and maybe it comes this year. Maybe you get burned. I mean, but depending upon your format, obviously if it's a dynasty format, you're going to go Hughes a million times over Crosby. But in a season-long format, you might be able to get one more good year out of him. So,
does Jack Hughes have dual position eligibility?
He's a left wing in
he's
some
a left wing as well
leagues.
because he played a little bit there for some reason. So, even more reason for me. The tiebreaker for me personally, in most of my life, is if a center has dual position eligibility and I can fit him in my roster better than just being a center. That's the deciding factor. So if I was looking at Hughes and Crosby and being dead even, which I already don't, and then I said, okay, what will separate them? Jack Hughes having dual position eligibility would separate it for me.
All right, so we've got 6 here. We got 4 to go, and this is where things could start to get interesting. So who do we have at 7? JT Miller was listed as a potential candidate. Elias Pettersson, Braden Point. I think those are 3 strong candidates right there that you could throw in that 7 spot. Who are we leaning towards? I would probably say one of the Canuck centers. That would be my take there. You can't go wrong with either of them in this position. I mean, yes, Braden Point's probably going to be leaned on even more than he has in the past. But I think with Vancouver, I would probably go with one of the Vancouver centers here.
It's JT Miller for me. The man can score. The man can pass the puck. He plays important minutes. He also hits. So if you're in a league with a player who hits, like everybody gives Brady Tkachuk like a little bit of an edge because he can rack up points and he throws his weight around. And the same thing for Alexander Ovechkin. He's one of those players who scores goals and racks up hits. JT Miller is right there. So I feel like he gets slept on a little bit here. I feel like people don't respect him as much. And I know I said this a year ago where I got him at a crazy discount because everybody just forgot that he existed. I don't see that discount being as prominent this year, but I also think he is a top 10 center. Same argument as well. Pretty sure he has dual position eligibility because they can flop him around all over the place. And I see him as a player who they may trust a little bit more than Elias Pettersson to start. Pettersson was not good in the playoffs, and I don't know how much of that follows him. JT Miller can play against the best. He can shut the opposing team down, but he can still rack up points. And he's going to play with Jake DeBrusk, or he's going to play with Brock Besser or whoever else. I think their power play will be just fine. I like him there because of the added hits that he can bring and the fact that he can play more than one position.
And are we okay with JT Miller at number 7? You're muted.
We're gonna take that as a yes.
That is a 100% yes, because I had him at 5, so I'll take him there.
Your silence was very convincing there to leave him in. You didn't even want to say anything. You're like, nope, that's it. Yeah, I had nothing left to say. So JT Miller at 7. So okay, so if now you say that JT Miller and Pedersen, you worry about Pedersen a little bit. Do we want to throw Braden Point in that 8 spot? Is there somebody else we're considering here? Because now we get to where you've got the Barkovs, the Ahos, and Connor Bedards of the world. That could also make an argument there.
I have Connor Bedard at 8. I know that he's still young. I know that the Chicago Blackhawks are a mess. They did add some support to that team. So there are some veterans who are going to be there who can assist him in being better. But at the same time, Chicago is going to be a bad team. Let's not kid anybody here. And they're going to be playing from behind a lot. And that means Connor Bedard is going to be on the ice a lot. And if he's not hurt, he's going to be out there. And he's going to continue to razzle dazzle and rack it up. He was not bad in his rookie year. And I think he can be a player who takes even more of a step. I think he can be a point per game player on a god-awful Chicago team.
How do we feel about putting Bedard in the top 10, Ann?
I don't have him in the top 10.
I had him just outside. I had him at 11.
I think he's on the precipice. I mean, you also have to consider that Chicago team right now. And they're, obviously he's going to make his due in his points, but even when the Devils were bad with a top Jack Hughes, he just wasn't getting the points. And I can't put him there right now with Pedersen out there, with Braden Point out there. I just can't put him right at the top 10. You got, Sebastian Aho as well. And I even have Nick Suzuki on the precipice of the top 10.
Spectre, I like that.
There's a couple of good names there. Aho, Point, Barkov.
Yeah.
So I'm not against putting him in the top 10. I don't know if I could put him 8 or even 9. I can maybe slip him in at 10. I don't know if I know the potential's there. But last year, 22 goals, 39 assists in 68 games. So figure he gets another, 10 games maybe. This is a random couple here and there. So
he's the best out of that grouping that he's on top of right there. He's the best out of that grouping right there. But I don't think he's better. He may be better than Dylan Larkin. But that 4 group right there, Pedersen, Point, Barkov, Aho, I can't put him above that right now.
You don't think the addition, though, of adding Teuvo Teravainen, you got Tyler Bertuzzi there. I mean, Taylor Hall, if he's healthy, can help. I know. Mikheyev, there's a little bit more veteran presence there, and there's these guys can at least play hockey, right? At times last year, they looked like an AHL team, and Bedard was just by himself. So I feel like he did a lot with less, and now they've given him just a little bit. It's not great. I understand that. But could he flirt with a point per game here? Yeah. And if I'm getting 82 points out of him, that's top 10 for me.
We're talking about let's talk about a league that has 10 teams here.
Yeah.
Your first pick with all these guys that are on this list right now, if you're in the bottom of that order, are you taking a Connor Bedard in your top 10?
If I'm only drafting centers, I mean, sure. But if I'm in a 10-team league, and let's say I draft the first overall pick or second, or let's say towards the top, right? Because if I take McDavid, I can see how some people may be like, oh, I'm not going to take a center back to back, right? I would have no problem taking him around the turn of round 3. So if I'm coming back from if I'm drafting towards the end of round 2, I would take him on the turn in round 3, which is where he's been going in most of our drafts anyway, somewhere in that range. And I think that's fair for him. I wouldn't go further than that. But in terms of upside, right? Because that's what I'm trying to swing at here. I'm trying to swing for the fence. Connor Bedard, to me, is one of the players that has the upside to do it. He is more talented than every single player on that left side. And I get what a team that he plays on. I get all that. But If I'm swinging, I'm going to swing for the fence, and I'm going to go with Connor.
All right, so we'll compromise. We'll throw him at 10. We'll get him inside the top 10 there for you. Who are you putting at 8, though? If you had to pick one of these 4 guys here on the left column to put in the 8 spot, who would it be?
I guess it would be Braden Point, but I expect him to have a little bit of a decline now that Stamkos isn't there. I can live with that.
You can live with Point as your 8.
I can live with it, yes.
Okay. All right, so we're going to slide him there. Now, before we get to the number 9 spot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get our mock draft ready, because let's face it, that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to do some mock drafts. So let's do this 12-teamer here. That's 8 minutes away. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the public chat here. So there's your Yahoo link there. And then I'm going to go tweet that out as well. So we got some quality names here for number 9, Pedersen, Barkov, Aho. We're going to compromise and put Bedard at 10, even though I had him at 11. Anthony didn't have him in the top 10. Chris had him at 8. So that's the compromise there. What do we want to put in the 9 spot between those 3? For me, it would be between Barkov and Aho. Because Aho is still the top guy in Carolina, still produces. Seth Jarvis on that right side is going to be real strong for them. I think he's still going to be the top, guy on the power play and all that stuff. So that's my argument there for Aho. And, similar for, and he's got Svechnikov on that line as well. And then when you look at the Florida Panthers there, we all know what Barkov brings to the table. Maybe not so much in the goal scoring department, but everything else. He's going to have Sam Reinhart on his right side there, 57 goal scorer last year. Verhaeghe, 30-plus goal guy. So he's going to rack up assists. So that if you're in a categories league, a guy like Barkov could help you there with the assists.
I guess. I have Joel Eriksson. I had him at 10. I can live with him at 9. The Minnesota Wild are one of those teams where right now they don't have a lot of center depth. And I don't know if I'm ready to buy into the hype of Marco Rossi just yet. And Joel Eriksson scored 30 goals on a team that was not very good. He's going to play with Kirill Kaprizov or Matt Boldy, who is very, very good as well. Matt Zuccarello is still kicking, so that's kind of good. I know there are things that set the Minnesota Wild back in terms of their offense, but this is another case where he's going to be out there a lot. He also has the defensive responsibilities because he's a good 2-way forward. And usually top players are not great defensively, right? Like Barkov is, Aho is, right? But a lot of top end players, do I think that Austin Matthews is good defensively? No. Do I think Nathan McKinnon is good defensively? No. I just think he possesses the puck so much that, he just has to be decent defensively and he'll get away with it. So I had him there. I had him at 9.
Okay. So I
am no help. I understand that.
I know you have no help, but I've been seeing him go higher and higher in mock drafts. I get it. He's a consistent producer there. I could put him in a top 12. I don't know if I could have him in the top 10 just because it is Minnesota. They don't score a ton of goals, but maybe this year things are different. New coaching staff, Brock Faber another year, generating stuff on the back end, making that offense move a little bit more there. And who's your argument there for the 9 spot? I've picked my 2. Chris has made his selection. Who would yours be?
This is absolutely the toughest list that we have done so far. I'm still shocked that Elias Pettersson's not in this list in the top 10, but I will take him out to kind of be that, mediator here and go with either Barkov and Aho. And if I have to go with one of them, I like Barkov's line better than I do Aho's line. So I will go with Alexander Barkov.
All right. So it's I think Barkov is the way to go here. If you're getting in on that mock draft, we appreciate it. I see Chris there. I see me there. Waiting for Anthony to get him and see a guy named James, a guy named Jeremy. So still a couple of spots to go here. Dave Camp now in the room now. So good to see you there. 6 spots remaining. Let's get Sasha Barkov here in the top 10. I know this is not Chris's favorite top 10, but nonetheless, here we are. I think we got a strong top 10 list there. Just to review, McDavid at 1, McKinnon at 2, Matthews at 3, Draisaitl 4, Hughes 5, Crosby 6, JT Miller 7, Braden Point 8, Sasha Barkov 9, Connor Bedard 10. Also receiving votes, we're going to throw Elias Pettersson in here. We'll throw Sebastian Aho in here, and we will throw Joel Eriksson Ek in there. So there you go. So those are the guys. Those are the top 10 centers plus the other people to consider here